Hello and welcome to Prime Code Media. In this video, I'll be showing you how you can use Bootstrap to make images responsive. The documentation says images in Bootstrap are made responsive with the image fluid class, and this applies a maximum width of 100% and a height of auto to the image so that it scales with the parent width. So the aim is to make the image to scale with the width of its parent element. So I'm going to put this into practice by adding an image to my code editor like so. So for a source here, I'm going to search for one of Bootstrap's brand images. I'm just going to look for one here. Let me see which one I can pick up. I think this one will work fine, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy the image address of this image like so, and then paste it inside here as my source. The next thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to add a class to this image, and remember the class that I'm going to add is that of image fluid, and the aim is to make our image to scale with the image of its parent element, which in this case will be the body, as this image is inside the body. So I'm going to add the class here like so. So the class is image fluid. Now let's go inside the browser and first check if we have successfully managed to add the image. Secondly, check if our image is able to scale with the width of its parent element. Now here we go, we do have the image here. We've successfully managed to add it, and as you can see, the image takes up the entire width of our viewport, and this is because, as the documentation explains here, this class applies a maximum width of 100%, and that is the reason why this image takes up the entire width of our viewport. Now let's see if this image indeed is able to scale with the width of its parent element. Now you'll see that when I squeeze the screen here, the image keeps to the size of its parent element, meaning that the image is able to adapt to different viewport sizes, and we've achieved this by adding this class here, and that is the class of image fluid. Now Bootstrap also allows us to give an image a rounded 1 pixel border, and this by using a class of image thumbnail. Now here's an example here of that class, and in this example the documentation uses a 200 by 200 pixel image. I'm also going to change the size of my image to 200 by 200. I'm going to do that inside here. Let me first add a style attribute. I'm going to add a style attribute, and then inside I'm going to specify first the width of the image, 200 pixel, and then I'm also going to specify the height, and the height is also 200 pixel. Now let's go to the browser and first check if we have managed to change the size of our image. Now there we go, I have managed to change the size of my image, and then next what I'm going to do here, as I said, I'm going to add the 1 pixel rounded border by using this class of image thumbnail. But before I do that, as you can see, we have this image on a white background. So if we give this image a white 1 pixel border, it's not going to be clearly visible. So for it for the border to be clearly visible, I'm just going to give this body a background color, and I'm going to do that inside here. I'm going to give this background color to the body because it is the parent element of a of our image. I'm going to first add the style attribute. I'm using inline CSS, so the property is background color, and then the value will be the color. And for the color, I'm going to use colorhunt.co to pick a palette for my background color. Let me see which one I'm going to use. There's just quite a number of them. Sometimes it becomes quite difficult to even pick one because they all look nice. So let me just pick this one. I hope this one will look fine. If it doesn't, we have the option to change it. So let's go back inside here. I'm going to paste the hex code here. It's very important to ensure that the hex code is preceded by the hashtag sign for it to work. Now let's go back into the browser and refresh to see if we've managed to successfully add the background color. Now there we go, we have that background color. Next, I'm going to add that rounded 1 pixel border around my image, and I'm going to do that, remember, by adding a class, by giving this image a class of image thumbnail. So I'm going to remove this class here. Remember, the aim for this class was to ensure or to demonstrate that Bootstrap allows us to make images to scale with the width of their parent element. So we've done that, and I've just removed it. I'm going to add another class, image thumbnail, like so. Now let's go into the browser and see if we've successfully managed to add that 1 pixel border around our image. Now, as you can see, our image right now has a 1 pixel border around it. Now, what if I don't want a border around my image, but just want my image to have rounded corners? I can achieve that by giving my image a rounded class. Now, I'm going to come back inside here and remove this class. Instead, I'm just going to replace this with a class rounded, like so. As you can see, this is how our image looks with a 1 pixel rounded border. You'll see that when I refresh, the border goes away. We now left with an image that does not have a border but has rounded corners. And now, using Bootstrap float classes, we can also align our images. So we can align our images. These are the classes that we can use in order to align our images. We will use the float start to float an image to the left, and then we will use the float end to float the image to the right. Now I'm going to put this into practice, but I'm going to use a different example from this one that the documentation is offering us here. Inside my documentation, inside my I beg your pardon, my code editor, I am going to add a paragraph like so. So I'm going to add a paragraph inside here, and then I'm going to add some lorem ipsum inside here. Now let's go see how our content looks inside the browser. So I'm just going to come in here and refresh. Now we have an image at the top there, and we also have some lorem ipsum right there at the bottom. So what I want to do, I want my image to float to the left of this text content right here. So I want this image to float to the left, and to do that, or to achieve that, I'm going to use a float class. So inside here, I am going to come inside this image here. I'm not going to even remove the rounded class because it's not going to have an impact on what I'm going to do. I'm just going to keep the size, or that is the shape, as it is. The only thing that I am going to do, I am going to add a float class. So I'm going to add a float class like so. So float start. Now let's go and see how our content looks with a float start class added. Now this is how our content looks. So we have this image to the left, that is at the start, and we have these paragraphs or lorem ipsum text on the right here. So if we want this image to move from here to the right here, we can achieve that by just changing the class here from float start to float end, like so. Let's save and go back to the browser, refresh and see how it now looks. So inside the browser, let me refresh. This is how our content now looks. Now we have managed to move this image to the right. It has floated to the right, and we have done that by just changing the class from float start to float end. The documentation also says block level images can also be centered using the MX Auto margin utilities, and here they've also provided an example of how this can also be achieved. So what I'm going to do right here, I'm just going to go back to my browser because I'm done with this paragraph here. The only thing that I'm going to do, I'm just going to remove this paragraph because I am done with it. And then what I want to do right now is to center this image. Let's go back to the browser and have a view at this image with the float class. Let me just refresh the browser. So as you can see, the image is still to the right because of that float end class that we have used, which is this one. Now I'm going to remove this float end because I don't want the image to float anymore. I want to center the image. So I'm just going to save this image to ensure that it is back to its default position, so without a class in it. So I'm just going to refresh this image so it is back to where it was initially before I added that float class. Now I want this image to be here at the center, and to center this image, which is a block element, I'm going to be able to achieve that by using this class here, that is the MX Auto, and to also specify that this is that is display block, that is specify the display and to say that it is a block element. So I'm going to do that inside my code editor right here. I'm going to add the class MX, this utility MX Auto, and then for display block, like so. And then let me refresh and then go back to the browser. Now let's refresh and see if we've successfully managed to center the image. Now by using that MX Auto and specifying the display, we have now managed to center this image. Now there's a lot that Bootstrap allows us to do to images. So for example, you remember earlier we changed the shape of this image by giving it rounded the corners. We can, for example, if we want to change this size, or maybe for example have these rounded corners on just one side of the image. For example, we can just come in here and just change the size to, or the corners to be on one side, like let's say round start. You'll see that this will make the rounded corners to only be on the left of the image. Now as you can see, only the left image has the left side of the image has rounded corners, and the right side keep default that is shape. So if we want to also maybe we want to change this, we want these rounded corners to be on the right and instead of the left, all we need to do is we will just have to come here and change replace start with end, like so. Let's save and go back, see if that also works. Let's just refresh the image. Now as you can see, now those rounded corners are on the right of the image and the left has the default shape. What else we can also do is that what we can also do here, for example, if we want our image to be a circle or to be round, we can just do that by removing end here and type circle, like so. Let's save and see if that changes our image the way we want it to. Let's go. Now there we go. Now we have our image shape changed from its square, from square to a circle. And these are just examples of many ways that you can be able to play around with the images, using a Bootstrap. So these are just some of those few examples. So please check out the documentation for more on what you can do with images using this front end framework, and please share how it's going in the comments section. Thank you so much for watching. Till we code again next time. Take care. Bye.